In the cold silence of the royal docking bay, the alien Princess Sarathia stood tall, her silver eyes fixed on the human ship arriving from Earth. The metallic craft looked tiny compared to the towering ships of the Empire, and many in the court laughed quietly. "This is humanity?" one of the guards whispered mockingly. Sarathia said nothing, but even she wondered if the stories about humans being weak, emotional, and soft were true. The ship door opened slowly, and a man stepped out, calm, quiet, and alone. His name was Ethan Cross. He wasn't dressed in armor, had no visible weapon, and looked like someone who didn't belong in a hall full of powerful alien warlords. Yet his eyes, they didn't look afraid. They looked aware. Sarathia had been forced into this marriage by the Galactic Council to form peace between her empire and Earth. She didn't love him, didn't even respect him. To her, this was just politics, one weak species joining a stronger one. Her father, Emperor Thalos, had agreed only because humanity had offered their technology for peace. The wedding was grand but cold. Sarathia walked beside Ethan with a polite smile, and when he looked at her, she saw something strange. Not arrogance, not fear, but quiet understanding. Like he could already see the truth about her heart. After the ceremony, the palace halls buzzed with whispers. The alien nobles mocked Ethan openly. "He looks like a fragile toy," one said. "He can't even sense energy fields." Sarathia remained silent, pretending she didn't care, but something inside her felt uneasy. That night, when she entered their shared chamber, she found Ethan sitting by the window, staring at the stars. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked in a formal tone. He smiled gently. "Sometimes, but humans don't stay homesick for long. We learn to survive wherever we are." His words were simple, but there was a strange confidence behind them, like a soldier speaking from memory. Days turned into weeks. Ethan behaved kindly, never raised his voice, never showed anger. He explored the palace, asked questions about the alien culture, and spent time with the palace workers instead of the royal elites. Sarathia found that strange. Why would a prince spend hours talking to engineers and servants? When she confronted him, he simply said, "Because they build the world the royals stand on." That line stayed in her mind. She began to watch him more carefully. Every night, he sat at his desk, writing or calculating something on his device. Sometimes she would catch him whispering numbers under his breath. Coordinates, energy ratios, things she didn't understand. Then one day, the Empire came under attack. A rebel fleet from the outer colonies appeared, demanding the Emperor's surrender. They were armed with plasma weapons that could melt through planets. The palace guards panicked. Even the generals looked uncertain. Sarathia watched as chaos spread. Her father prepared to flee to the war bunker. In the middle of all this, Ethan stood up and said calmly, "I can help." Everyone turned toward him and laughed. "A human?" one general sneered. "Stay out of this. You'll only get in the way." But Ethan didn't argue. He simply asked for access to the shipyard's defense grid. Sarathia was curious, maybe even desperate, so she allowed it. The human walked to the control station, his fingers flying across the alien interface like he'd used it before. In seconds, he bypassed systems even the royal engineers couldn't open. "How do you know this technology?" Sarathia demanded. He just smiled faintly. "Because humans built half of it before your people bought it from us." Within moments, he had the defense drones realigned. Then he did something no alien could have done. He rewired the power flow using a human code sequence. The lights in the control room flickered, and the system rebooted with a glowing blue pulse. The next second, the entire sky outside lit up as hundreds of defense satellites fired in perfect unison, cutting through the rebel fleet like blades of light. The war lasted only minutes. The rebels were destroyed. The palace fell into silence. Everyone turned toward the human, speechless. Sarathia stared at him, truly stared, for the first time. What did you just do?" she whispered. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead and answered softly, "I just used what humanity learned from surviving itself." There was no pride in his voice, only quiet certainty. For the first time, Sarathia didn't see a weak creature. She saw a survivor of a dangerous world, a mind sharper than any weapon. After the battle, the Emperor summoned Ethan privately. No one knew what was said inside that room, but when Ethan came out he looked even calmer. The guards who once mocked him now stood straight when he passed. Sarathia followed him through the garden that evening, unable to hold back her curiosity. "Why didn't you tell anyone about your power before?" she asked. Ethan looked at her with a gentle sadness. "Because power means nothing until someone truly needs it. Humans learned that lesson long ago." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that even Sarathia couldn't explain. That night, as she stood by the window, watching the stars shimmer across the black sea of space, Sarathia felt something new: respect, and maybe even fear. She realized that humans were not weak. They were dangerous in a quiet way, not because of their weapons, but because of their minds, their courage, and their will to adapt. The galaxy had underestimated them, and she, the proud princess of an ancient empire, had married one of them. Ethan continued to live humbly in the palace, but the whispers had changed. Now, when nobles spoke of him, they used words like strategist, war hero, and the human who saved the throne. But Sarathia couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. There was something deeper inside him, something he hadn't revealed yet. Sometimes, when she looked into his eyes, she saw a reflection of Earth's long and brutal history: wars, pain, survival, and endless evolution. And one night, when the palace was quiet, she asked softly, "Ethan, if humans are capable of so much, what is it that you fear?" He looked at her for a long time before answering, "What I fear, princess, is what will happen when the galaxy pushes humanity too far." His voice was calm, but it sent a chill down her spine. The next morning, the palace was full of rumors. Every corridor, every hall echoed with one name: Ethan Cross, the human who had saved the Empire in one night. Some said he was a spy from Earth. Others whispered that he was a machine in disguise. But no one dared to speak against him in front of the Emperor. Even the proud generals bowed their heads when Ethan passed. Princess Sarathia watched all this silently. A part of her was proud, another part deeply confused. She couldn't understand how someone so quiet could carry so much strength inside. That evening, she went to his quarters again. Ethan was sitting alone, surrounded by glowing blue holograms. Maps, energy charts, star systems, all spinning around him. "You're studying the galaxy's defense systems?" she asked softly. He smiled without looking up. "Just learning how things work. Your empire runs on logic. Humans run on instinct." Sarathia frowned. "Instinct can be dangerous." Ethan looked up at her then, his gray eyes calm but sharp. "Only when it's ignored." There was something in his voice that unsettled her. A weight of experience, like a man who had seen too much. She sat across from him. "You keep saying humans learned this and humans learned that. What did your people go through to learn so much?" Ethan paused. For a moment, he looked out the window at the stars, as if they reminded him of something painful. "We destroyed ourselves once," he said quietly. "Long before we looked up and decided to stop. Every human carries the memory of that mistake. That's why we adapt. That's why we survive." Sarathia didn't know what to say. She had grown up believing humans were simple creatures, emotional and fragile. But now she saw something else. They had burned, fallen, and still risen again. That kind of species could never be weak. The next few days were calm on the surface, but tension was building behind the scenes. The Galactic Council, the ruling body of the entire Star Alliance, had heard of the humans' actions. They did not like it. In their eyes, a single human changing the outcome of a war was a threat, an unpredictable variable. So, they sent observers to the Empire to study him. Sarathia was present when they arrived. Tall figures in dark robes, faces hidden, voices cold. They asked questions about Ethan, his knowledge, his skills, his behavior. Sarathia could feel the danger in their tone. That night, she found Ethan walking alone in the royal gardens. The wind was cold, carrying the scent of alien flowers that glowed under the moonlight. "They're afraid of you," she said quietly. Ethan gave a small smile. They should be afraid of what's coming, not me. She frowned. What do you mean? He looked at the sky. Do you know what happens when powerful empires start fearing the people they control? They begin to destroy themselves. The next day, something unexpected happened. The Council's ship intercepted a human transmission from deep space. A signal coded in an ancient Earth format that no one could read except Ethan. They claimed it was a security threat. They demanded Ethan decode it. Sarathia watched as he was brought into the council chamber, surrounded by alien guards. The Emperor sat silently, unsure whether to defend his son-in-law or obey the council's orders. Ethan stood in the center, hands behind his back. One council member said, "You will open this human code for us. We must ensure your kind is not plotting rebellion." Ethan looked at them calmly. "And if I refuse?" The chamber went silent. The lead observer hissed, "Then we will have your mind extracted by force." Sarathia's heart froze, but Ethan didn't move. He simply said, "You can try." The words were soft, but they carried power. The council's machines activated, creating a bright web of light around him. A neural scan. Yet the moment the light touched his head, the machines exploded with a flash of static. Sparks filled the air. Guards stumbled back. The chamber went dark. When the emergency lights came back on, Ethan was standing exactly where he had been, completely unharmed. The council members were shaken. "What are you?" one whispered. Ethan looked at them, his face calm. "A human," he said simply. Then he walked out. Sarathia followed him, her heart pounding. "Ethan, what happened in there? That wasn't normal." He looked at her quietly. "There are things your empire doesn't understand about us. You think strength comes from energy, weapons, or bloodlines. But the strongest power we have is will. You can't read it. You can't break it." That night she couldn't sleep. She kept remembering how the machines failed to touch him, how the council's fear had grown. And for the first time she realized something terrifying. The galaxy wasn't afraid of Earth because it was weak. They were afraid because it was unpredictable. Because humans were the one species that didn't follow the same rules as everyone else. In the days that followed, the council began secret meetings. Plans were being made. Sarathia overheard two advisors whispering. They were planning to remove Ethan quietly. "He's too dangerous," one said. "If humans have evolved that far, they could become a threat to all known civilizations." Sarathia felt a strange panic. She had once thought of him as nothing more than a quiet human husband, but now she knew. If they tried to hurt him, it wouldn't end well for anyone. Humanity had been silent for too long. The next evening, she went to Ethan again. "They're planning something," she warned. He nodded. "I know." "You know?" she gasped. "Yes," he said simply. "I let them. I want to see how far they'll go." There was something in his tone. Not anger, not fear, but a deep, cold certainty. Sarathia felt a chill crawl down her spine. The stars over the Imperial Palace glowed brighter that night, but the light felt wrong. Cold, distant, and heavy with silence. Princess Sarathia could feel the tension building across the galaxy. Every council station, every military fleet, every noble house whispered the same word. Human. The story of Ethan Cross, the quiet human who broke the council's machines and saved the empire, had spread to every system. To some, he was a symbol of hope. To others, a dangerous mystery that needed to be erased. Inside his private chamber, Ethan stood before a wide star map. Thousands of glowing dots marked the locations of human colonies across the void. Sarathia entered quietly. "You've been tracking them," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Not just tracking. Listening." "Listening to what?" "To the silence," he replied, his tone distant. "For a long time, humans stopped speaking to the galaxy. We hid, learned, and built in the dark. But silence has an end." Sarathia frowned. "You make it sound like humanity is preparing for something." Ethan turned toward her, eyes calm but sharp as steel. "They are. The galaxy thinks Earth stayed quiet because it was weak. But silence was our shield. Now, they've forced us to break it." Before Sarathia could ask more, a messenger rushed in, pale, trembling. Your Highness, the Council has ordered the arrest of Ethan Cross. They've declared humans a Level 1 threat. Sarathia froze. What? On what charge? The messenger stammered. Violation of galactic security and biological anomaly. Without hesitation, Sarathia ran toward the throne hall. Dozens of guards surrounded Ethan. The Council's ships hovered above the palace, their red lights glowing like angry eyes. Ethan Cross, you are to be detained and studied under Article 9 of the Galactic Code, the lead enforcer announced. Ethan didn't resist. He simply raised his hands, a calm smile on his face. So, this is how peace ends, with fear. Sarathia stepped in front of him. You will not touch him, she shouted. The guards hesitated. He saved this empire. Without him, you'd all be dust. But the Council's voice came through the speakers. Cold, unfeeling. That is exactly why we must contain him. The guards moved forward. Sarathia's heart pounded. She turned to Ethan, whispering, Please, fight back. Do something. Ethan looked into her eyes. Kind, steady, almost sad. Not yet, he said, and then he allowed them to take him away. The next morning, the Empire was in shock. Ethan Cross was gone, taken to a secret facility on the frozen moon of Dravis 9, a place where no prisoner ever returned. Sarathia couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Her dreams were filled with Ethan's calm voice and that final look in his eyes. She knew he wasn't afraid, he was waiting for something. 2 days later, the galaxy found out what. At precisely 0400 hours, every communication channel in the known systems flickered. Civilian holoscreens, military command links, even the Council's private channels all turned black. Then a single symbol appeared. The blue insignia of old Earth. The human flag. For the first time in centuries, humanity was speaking. A deep voice echoed through the stars. To all who hear this, this is the United Human Alliance. The voice was not Ethan's, but older, colder. You have taken one of ours. You call him dangerous. You call him unpredictable. You forget who we are. Across 1,000 worlds, silence fell. The message continued. We were born from chaos. We survived our own destruction. We mastered silence, hunger, and time. We came to the stars not as conquerors, but as witnesses. But when you threaten one of us, you awaken all of us. Sarathia stood frozen, watching the broadcast with the entire court. The Emperor's hands shook. The Council's ships stopped transmitting. The message ended with 5 chilling words. Humanity does not forgive easily. Moments later, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human ships, invisible before, were decloaking near key Council worlds. They didn't attack. They just hovered, silent and watching. Their presence alone was enough to terrify the galaxy. On Dravis 9, the guards surrounding Ethan began to panic as their systems failed. Doors unlocked by themselves. Power grids shut down. Ethan stood in his cell, smiling faintly as the walls flickered with blue light. The human flag appeared on every screen. Then the locks clicked open. When Sarathia received the news, she flew to Dravis 9 herself. She didn't know what she'd find. Chaos, fire, or war. But when she landed, she found Ethan standing on the snowy plains, calm as ever, surrounded by fallen drones that had simply shut down. He turned to her and said quietly, They shouldn't have forced Earth to wake up. She stared at him, breathless. You knew this would happen? He nodded. Humans have always known. We just hoped it wouldn't come to this. For the first time, Sarathia truly understood the depth of what humanity was. Not weak, not violent, but a sleeping storm. When pushed too far, it didn't rage blindly. Calculated. It responded. And when it did, the universe trembled. Ethan looked up at the dark sky and whispered, Now the galaxy will learn what humanity first, yesterday really means. The galaxy had never been this silent before. Every star system, every trading port, every council ship held its breath. The humans had spoken, and now the universe was waiting for what came next. The message from Earth still echoed in everyone's mind. You awaken all of us. In the Emperor's palace, Princess Sarathia stood before the Galactic Council holograms. The alien leaders looked uneasy, their voices filled with panic disguised as authority. "The humans must be stopped before they strike," said one, his scaled hands trembling. "If we allow them to gather power, they will become unstoppable." Sarathia clenched her fists. "They haven't attacked anyone. They only reacted to your cruelty." The council's tone turned sharp. "You defend the human because he is your husband. But do not forget, Princess, he is also a threat to us all." Her father, Emperor the Los, stayed silent. He had seen Ethan's calmness, his intelligence, and his ability to do the impossible. Deep down, he knew the council was making a grave mistake. But fear was stronger than reason. Fear made empires blind. Outside, fleets began to move. Massive warships from the council's armada filled the skies, surrounding the territories near human colonies. The stars themselves seemed to darken under the weight of so many engines. The galaxy was preparing for war. Meanwhile, far from the palace, Ethan stood in the hangar of a human warship, the Horizon Spear. It had appeared suddenly in orbit, summoned by a signal only he could send. Around him stood humans in quiet formation. Soldiers, engineers, pilots, each with the same expression, calm and ready. "Are they coming?" one of the captains asked. Ethan nodded. "Yes, fear always comes first before understanding." Back in the palace, Sarathia made a decision that could cost her everything. She activated a secret link to Ethan's ship. "Ethan," she whispered, "the council is gathering all its fleets near the Valera system. They want to wipe out any human presence there." Ethan's voice came through the static, steady as always. "Thank you, Sarathia. You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," she said. "I married you because I was told to, but now I stand with you because I want to." For the first time, Ethan smiled, a real warm smile. "Then you're already stronger than any empire." Hours later, the war began. The council's fleets jumped into human space, firing before giving any warning. Thousands of plasma torpedoes turned the void into a storm of light. But then, the light vanished. The human ships didn't move. They didn't fire back. They simply disappeared. Confused, the council generals ordered scanners to locate them, but every radar, every satellite went blind. And then, one by one, human ships began to reappear. Not in front, but behind the council's armada. Silent and precise, like ghosts. The first attack wasn't a weapon. It was data. A wave of coded energy hit the council ships, shutting down their targeting systems, disabling their shields. Ethan stood calmly on the bridge, watching the chaos unfold. "We don't need to destroy them," he said quietly. "We just need to remind them how fragile they really are." In minutes, the mighty fleets that had ruled the stars were powerless. Ships drifted without control, their systems dark. The humans didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they transmitted a simple message across the battlefield. "We gave you peace. You gave us fear. Now learn silence." On the palace balcony, Sarathia watched the live feed in awe. Her people, her proud ancient empire, had always believed they were untouchable. But now she saw how wrong they were. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity was patient. They didn't conquer planets. They conquered fear itself. But peace didn't come easily. The council, humiliated and desperate, made one last move. They unleashed a forbidden weapon, a quantum storm that could erase entire systems. It was pointed toward Earth. Sarathia's heart stopped when she heard the news. "They're targeting your home," she screamed through the communicator. Ethan's face appeared on the screen, calm but focused. "I know. I've already seen it. You can stop it, right?" she asked, voice trembling. "I can try," he said, "but it might cost everything." He turned to his crew. "Prepare the singularity shield. Full power." The officers hesitated. "Sir, that could destroy us." Ethan looked at the planet hologram of Earth glowing softly in the center of the room. "Then let it destroy me." As the council fired their weapon, the skies above Earth burned with light. The storm of energy ripped across the void, devouring everything in its path. Ethan stood on the command bridge, eyes glowing faintly as he activated the shield. The ship began to shake violently, alarms blaring. The light swallowed them whole. Sarathia, watching from her palace, screamed his name. Ethan, then silence. For minutes, the entire galaxy held its breath. The quantum storm faded, and where Earth had been, there was only a field of blue light, calm, untouched, protected. Ethan's ship was gone. The council celebrated, thinking they had won. But Sarathia knew better. She looked at the stars and whispered, "He's not gone. He's humanity, and humanity never dies." Days turned into weeks, but the galaxy could not forget the light that covered Earth. The storm that should have destroyed everything instead vanished into silence, leaving only peace behind. The council's fleets had withdrawn, terrified by what they didn't understand. No one could explain how a human ship stopped a weapon made from the power of collapsing stars. And no one could find Ethan Cross. Princess Sarathia refused to believe he was dead. Every night, she stood by her window, staring at the blue glow surrounding Earth. It wasn't normal light. It was alive, breathing softly, pulsing like a heart. Scientists called it the silent barrier, but Sarathia called it something else. Ethan's will, she whispered. In the council chambers, panic was growing again. The humans are hiding something, one alien senator shouted. They have unlocked powers we cannot control. Another one hissed. That human sacrificed himself to become part of the planet's core. He's not gone. He's waiting. The Emperor looked at them with cold eyes. You fear what you do not understand. That man saved this galaxy from destruction. Yet you speak of killing his memory. But the council didn't listen. Fear was stronger than gratitude. They began to draft Protocol 13, a secret plan to cut Earth off from the rest of the galaxy permanently. Sarathia learned of their plan through her spies. That night, she took a shuttle and left the palace in disguise. Her destination, Earth. The humans had sealed the planet, surrounded by a shimmering energy field, but she was determined to reach it. The journey was long and dangerous. The closer she got, the more her ship systems began to fail. The blue light pulsed stronger, warning her to stay away, but she kept going. Finally, her shuttle lost all power and drifted toward the barrier. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Ethan, if you're still here, please hear me." The ship passed into the light, and suddenly, everything went quiet. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't in her shuttle anymore. She was standing on a smooth, white surface that stretched endlessly in every direction. The air was warm. The stars above shimmered softly. And then, she heard his voice. Sarathia. She turned and saw him, Ethan, standing there, dressed in simple white, his eyes glowing faintly with blue light. He looked human, but not entirely. His body radiated calm power, like he had become part of something larger. She ran to him, tears in her eyes. "You're alive." He smiled gently. "Alive, yes. Human, mostly." She touched his hand. It felt real warm, but there was energy flowing through his skin. "What happened to you?" she asked. "When the council fired the quantum storm," he explained, "I linked the singularity shield with Earth's core. It fused my mind with the planetary network, the oldest system humanity ever built. We called it the Silent Star Project. It was meant to protect our home if the galaxy ever turned against us. I became its key." Sarathia's heart ached. "So you're trapped here?" Ethan shook his head. "Not trapped. Connected. I can see everything now, every ship, every signal, every human world. I know the Council plans to isolate Earth. But they don't understand we were never isolated. We were watching." He looked toward the horizon. "Humanity doesn't want war. But if they come again, we'll show them something they've never seen. Unity." Sarathia took his hand again. "Then let me help you. Let me speak for you." Ethan smiled. "You already are, Sarathia. You were the first to believe." Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook. The light darkened. A warning tone echoed through the air. "They've launched their attack," Ethan said quietly. Sarathia looked up, Beyond the barrier, hundreds of council ships were approaching Earth again, ignoring all warnings. Ethan closed his eyes. I gave them a chance to learn peace, but they still choose fear. His voice deepened. The air around them rippled with energy. The blue light of the barrier began to pulse faster, brighter. Outside, the approaching fleets found their engines freezing, their weapons locking, their systems dying one by one. Pilots screamed through their comms. It's controlling us. The human network. It's inside our ships. Ethan opened his eyes. I don't want to destroy them, he whispered. But I will protect what I love. In one burst of light, the entire human network came alive. From every hidden colony, from every silent outpost, from every forgotten moon, human ships rose. Sleek, dark, unstoppable. They didn't attack. They simply formed a wall of light around Earth, like guardians standing for their home. The Council's fleet froze. They couldn't move forward. They couldn't even fire. Their systems now showed one message. Stand down. Humanity protects its own. Sarathia looked at Ethan with awe. You didn't destroy them. You stopped them without violence. Ethan smiled softly. Because that's what true strength means. He turned to her, his expression tender. Go back to your people, Sarathia. Tell them humanity will not fight unless they're forced to. Tell them peace is still possible, if they're brave enough to choose it. She shook her head. I can't leave you. He touched her cheek gently. You won't. I'll always be with you. In every heartbeat. In every whisper of the stars. And with that, the light began to fade. Sarathia felt herself being pulled back toward her shuttle. The last thing she heard was his voice. Quiet, steady, full of love and power. Remember, Princess, humans don't conquer. We endure. When she woke, she was back in her ship, orbiting Earth. The blue barrier still glowed below, untouched, serene. The Council fleets had retreated. And for the first time in history, the galaxy bowed not out of fear but respect. It had been 1 year since the light of Earth changed the fate of the galaxy. The Council was silent now. Its armies disarmed, its threats turned to whispers. Humanity no longer hid in the dark. They didn't conquer, they didn't invade. They simply stood watch over the stars, calm and unshaken, just like Ethan Cross once did. Princess Sarathia, now known as Queen Sarathia of the United Systems, sat in her grand hall, surrounded by leaders of 100 worlds. The old Galactic Council was gone. In its place was something new, a peace alliance built not from fear, but understanding. And it had all begun with one human who refused to fight with hate. She looked up at the massive window before her. Beyond it floated the blue glow of Earth, still wrapped in the silent barrier. No ship dared to cross it, yet it shone softly, welcoming and alive. Sarathia smiled sadly. You're still watching us, aren't you, Ethan? She whispered. Every night she could still feel him, not as a ghost, but as a presence in the stars. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could hear his voice whispering through her mind. Keep going, Sarathia. Don't let fear win again. The galaxy was learning slowly. The same empires that once mocked humans now sent ambassadors to Earth, asking for guidance. The phrase humanity first, yesterday, had become a symbol of unity. Not pride, but endurance. It reminded everyone that even the smallest species could rise above giants, not by power, but by choice. But peace was never easy. There were still those who hated humanity's influence, who whispered in shadows that humans had become gods. One evening, Sarathia was meeting with her council when an explosion shook the palace. Smoke and alarms filled the hall. Guards rushed in, shouting, Assassins! Sarathia's heart pounded. Before she could react, the ceiling cracked open, and through the dust she saw them. Rogue soldiers wearing the old council's insignia. The age of humans ends tonight, one shouted. Blasters fired. The guards fought back. In the chaos, Sarathia was thrown to the ground. Her vision blurred, but through the smoke, she saw something. A flash of blue light, a familiar pulse, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, every weapon in the room was gone. Melted, disarmed, useless. The attackers were on their knees, shaking, unable to move. Floating above them was a faint blue hologram, a figure of light with calm, human eyes. "Ethan," Sarathia breathed. The hologram smiled gently. "You promised to lead them, my queen," he said softly. "But sometimes, even peace needs a shield." Her eyes filled with tears. "You came back." "Not completely," he replied. "Only a fragment. A piece of me lives within the human network, and in every world that remembers our story." The hologram turned toward the captured soldiers. "You think power means control," it said. "But power means responsibility. The moment you use fear to rule, you've already lost." Then, the light faded, leaving only warmth, calm, and silence. The attackers fell unconscious. Sarathia stood slowly, her heart both breaking and healing at the same time. She realized that Ethan hadn't truly died that day. He had become something greater, not a man, not a weapon, but a symbol. In the days that followed, she built a great monument on the moon of Earth, a tall spire made of white stone and silver light. At its peak glowed a single blue flame that never went out. It was called the Eternal Star, and carved beneath it were Ethan's last words. "Humans don't conquer. We endure." Every year, people from across the galaxy came to see the monument. Children from alien worlds learned about the human who stopped a war not with weapons, but with wisdom. And Sarathia, now older but still graceful, stood before the monument each year and whispered her vow. "You showed me that peace is worth fighting for, even if it costs everything. I'll carry that forever." As she stood under the glowing sky of Earth's orbit, she felt a familiar warmth touch her hand. Invisible, gentle, but real. Ethan's voice echoed faintly in her mind one last time. "You kept your promise, Sarathia." And so did humanity. The stars shimmered brighter, like they were listening. The galaxy that was once divided now shared a single truth, that strength without compassion means nothing, and peace without courage cannot last. And in that endless sea of stars, the legend of Ethan Cross, the human once thought weak, continued to guide generations. Not as a god, not as a warrior, but as a reminder that humanity's truest power was never in destruction, but in hope. Moral: true power is not about how strong you are, but how much you can endure for what's right. Strength guided by love can change even the coldest stars. If you loved this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more amazing HFY sci-fi tales, where humanity proves again and again that even in the darkest galaxies, we never stop rising.